I want you to picture something with me for a second. Try to really put yourself in this environment. The sun above you is just, it's absolutely unforgiving.
Oh, yeah, that kind of pressing, oppressive heat.
Right, exactly. Like it's sapping the moisture right out of your skin. And you are standing on this narrow, dusty footpath cutting through a community in Ethiopia.
Okay.
And just ahead of you, there's a group of kids,
Yeah.
and they're gathered around what, I mean, at first glance, it just looks like a puddle.
Yeah, but it's not like a fresh rainwater puddle.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
As you get closer, you see it is completely stagnant. It's muddy.
Yeah.
And you watch as one boy, very carefully and deliberately, dips a yellow jerry can into this murky water to fill it up,
Right.
while another boy just cups his hands and drinks it right there.
It is an incredibly visceral image to start with. And we are pulling this directly from an excerpt called The Easiest Promise, Thirst and Survival in Ethiopia. And our mission for this deep dive is to look past the macro level dry statistics or those massive institutional reports about the global water crisis.
Because those can get so overwhelming.
Exactly. We want to zoom all the way in on the deeply personal reality of this situation, specifically looking at it through the eyes of a local mother watching that exact scene unfold.
Which is such a tough perspective to take.
Yeah.
I have to admit, reading through the material, my very first thought was a little naive.
How so?
Well, I saw that image of the child drinking from the puddle, and my immediate reaction was, why doesn't she just boil the water?
Right.
Or just walk a bit further to find a cleaner stream?
Right.
It feels like there should be an obvious workaround to keep her kid from ingesting stagnant mud. So walk me through why that's kind of an arrogant assumption on my part.
It's a really common assumption, actually, but it ignores the brutal physics and the economics of her environment. I mean, to boil water, you need fuel.
Yeah.
And in a lot of these rural communities, firewood is incredibly scarce. Gathering enough wood to maintain a rolling boil for the recommended time, that takes hours of labor.
Right, which means burning calories.
Exactly. Calories that she and her children might just not have to spare. Alternatively, she could buy charcoal, but that requires disposable income, which is often completely non-existent.
So the idea of, just turning on the stove completely misrepresents her reality. The fuel itself is as much of a hurdle as the water.
Precisely. And as for walking further, I mean, you are dealing with a landscape where the next water source might be 5, maybe 10, or even 15 miles away.
Wow.
Walking that distance under that unforgiving sun causes massive fluid loss through sweat. You risk severe dehydration just trying to reach a cleaner source.
Which defeats the purpose.
Right. And even then, there is zero guarantee that the next pond or stream isn't equally contaminated by livestock or agricultural runoff.
Ah, yeah. That fundamentally changes how you view that muddy puddle. I mean, if she can't boil it and she literally can't afford to walk past it, then she knows exactly what she is doing.
She does.
I think there's this tendency for people observing from afar to assume that the consumption of unsafe water is a result of, a lack of education. We think, if they just understood germ theory, they wouldn't drink that.
Right, the savior complex.
Yeah. But she knows it's a risk. She knows it carries the threat of waterborne diseases.
She understands the risk completely. Working in the WASH sector, that's water, sanitation, and hygiene, it teaches a really harsh lesson. People rarely choose unsafe water out of ignorance.
They're choosing survival.
Exactly, they are choosing survival.
Yeah.
For that mother, dehydration is a certainty. Her child will die without water today. Disease, on the other hand, is only a probability.
It might happen next week or next month.
Yes, she is trading a guaranteed death today for a possible illness tomorrow.
God, that's an agonizing calculation.
It really is. She's looking at her child, feeling the heat of that sun, and making the deliberate choice to keep her child alive for one more day, using the only tool she has available. Even if that tool is inherently dangerous.
Yeah.
No parent should ever have to weigh the certainty of thirst against the risk of disease, but she is forced to manage this exact risk every single day.
Which it begs a much larger question. I mean, we hear about international aid, global charities, government initiatives all the time.
Constantly.
Right. So if everyone agrees that clean water is a basic necessity, how does a community end up relying on a muddy puddle? Where are the systems that are supposed to prevent this?
Well, the puddle is usually the end result of a long chain of invisible systemic failures.
Okay, like what?
The source material highlights several ways this happens. You might have an unfinished project where an organization started drilling, but ran out of funding before the piping was completed.
No.
Or you might have a distant water point, meaning the infrastructure technically exists, but it was placed so far away from the actual population center that it's essentially useless for daily immediate needs.
Because of the walking distance we talked about.
Exactly. But the most common and perhaps the most frustrating failure is the broken borehole.
Well, okay, I am really stuck on this concept of the broken borehole. Because if an organization or a government drops tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars to drill a well, install a pump, don't they have an inspector make sure water actually comes out before they mark it as a success and leave?
Oh, they do.
They do. So who is dropping the ball here?
They ensure water comes out on day one. The failure usually happens in year 2 or year 3.
Ah,
This gets into the perverse incentives of how global aid and infrastructure projects are often funded. In the charity and NGO world, funding cycles are notoriously short-term.
okay.
Donors, whether they're individuals or massive institutions, they love to fund hardware. They want to pay for the drilling rig. They want to see the shiny new hand pump.
They want the ribbon-cutting ceremony.
Exactly.
Because it looks great in an annual report. You can point to a picture and say, I built that.
Exactly. What donors typically do not want to fund is a 10-year maintenance budget.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They don't want to pay for the unglamorous work of replacing worn-out rubber seals or paying a local mechanic a monthly retainer just to check the water pressure. So the NGO builds the well, it works beautifully for 18 months, and then a simple valve breaks.
Let me guess. The spare parts aren't available at the local market.
Often they aren't. The pump might have been manufactured in Europe or North America. The supply chain for that specific valve just doesn't exist in rural Ethiopia.
That's insane.
So a multi-thousand-dollar piece of infrastructure is rendered completely useless by the failure of a 10-cent rubber gasket.
Wow.
And by then, the NGO has already moved on to the next project, the funding cycle has closed, and the local community has absolutely no way to source the replacement part.
That is incredibly frustrating. Like the infrastructure is sitting right there in the community, a physical pipe going into the ground, but nothing comes out.
Nothing.
It's basically a monument to a broken promise.
Mm-hmm.
And the mother has to walk past that dry, useless pump every single day on her way to the muddy puddle.
It really highlights a massive disconnect in how success is measured. You have the administrative metric, and then you have the human metric.
Right.
The sector, the institutions building these projects, they tend to measure success by counting inputs. How many boreholes did we drill this year? How many people live within a 5-mile radius of those boreholes?
Yeah.
They put those numbers on a spreadsheet and declare the project a massive success.
It reminds me of like a tech startup bragging to investors about having 10 million app downloads. The metric looks fantastic on a pitch deck. But they conveniently ignore the fact that the app crashes on launch 90% of the time. The administrative metric is a huge success, but the actual user experience is a complete failure. If the app doesn't open, the download doesn't matter.
That is a very accurate way to look at it. To the mother living in that community, the spreadsheet means absolutely nothing.
Right.
She doesn't care about the millions of dollars allocated or the depth of the drilling rig. She measures success by one incredibly simple, vital metric. Can my child drink safely today?
And if the answer to that question is no, then the project is a failure, regardless of what the annual report says.
The author emphasizes this heavily until the answer to the mother's question is yes. For every single family, the work is simply not finished. Infrastructure is just metal and plastic.
Yeah?
It means nothing if it doesn't eventually translate to safe, clean water in a child's cupped hands.
Okay, we've spent a lot of time unpacking the mechanisms of failure here.
Yeah.
The lack of fuel, the broken supply chains, the misaligned incentives of the donors. And, I mean, it's easy to get cynical when you look at the sheer scale of the dysfunction.
Very easy, yeah.
But the source material doesn't leave us stranded at the muddy puddle. It actually spends a significant amount of time exploring what happens when the system actually works.
That does.
So when the promise is kept and the water flows, what does that transformation actually look like on the ground?
The transformation is immediate, and it extends far beyond just having clear water instead of brown water. The text specifically highlights the psychological shift.
Okay.
It describes watching mothers smile with genuine relief instead of worry.
Oh, wow. Just think about the immense mental load we discussed earlier, the daily grinding agony of calculating whether your child will die of dehydration today or dysentery next week.
Exactly.
When a reliable, safe water source is finally established, that crushing psychological burden is just gone.
And the lifting of that burden changes the entire trajectory of a family. I mean, waking up in the morning and knowing that the most fundamental baseline of survival is secure, it frees up an enormous amount of human potential.
I can imagine.
When you aren't spending hours every day securing water, or gathering firewood to boil water, or nursing a child through a preventable waterborne illness, you can direct that energy elsewhere.
So the ripple effects through the community must be massive.
They are. And the text points out one of the most critical secondary impacts: education.
Really, education.
Yeah. When the water is clean, children are no longer battling this constant debilitating cycle of intestinal diseases. They are physically healthy enough to learn.
I don't think most people connect those two dots. We usually think of water purely as a biological necessity like hydration.
Right.
But in this context, clean water is essentially an educational intervention. It's literally a school attendance strategy.
Mm.
If you want kids in classrooms, you have to give them safe water first.
It acts as the foundation for everything else. You cannot build a thriving economy or a robust educational system or a healthy society on a foundation of unsafe water.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
It is the prerequisite for human development. Providing clean water shouldn't be viewed merely as a charity project. It is the thing that allows a child to simply be a child, rather than forcing them to be a survivor from the very moment they wake up.
Which really brings us to the title of the piece we've been discussing, The Easiest Promise. I found that title really striking, especially after unpacking how complicated the supply chains are and how difficult it is to maintain these boreholes in remote areas. Like, the engineering clearly isn't easy.
The engineering is complex, yes, but the title refers to the moral imperative.
Right.
The author is challenging the reader to view this crisis not as some insurmountable abstract puzzle, but as a basic human right. Clean water shouldn't depend on the geographic lottery of where a child happens to be born.
No, absolutely not.
In a world with our level of technological and financial resources, ensuring a child has safe drinking water should be the easiest promise we make to one another as human beings.
And if we cannot fulfill that one basic obligation, it really calls into question our priorities on a global scale.
It absolutely does.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to pull all these threads together for you listening. We started with the visceral image of a muddy puddle, but I hope what has become clear is that this crisis is not just about a lack of resources. It is intimately, inextricably tied to a mother's daily fight for her child's survival and the invisible systems that either support her or completely fail her.
The puddle is just the visible symptom. The agonizing choice she makes is the human reality. The misaligned incentives and broken boreholes, those are the cause.
And fixing it requires looking past the spreadsheets and focusing on the only metric that actually matters: whether a child can drink safely today.
Well said.
I want to leave you with a final thought, something to mull over as you turn on your tap today without a second thought. We've explored how a local mother's daily reality, her deepest worries, and her greatest relief can be completely transformed by simply fixing a broken system and providing access to clean water.
Yeah.
So if such a massive transformation relies on something so fundamental, what other invisible systems of survival are operating around the world right now, just waiting for a broken promise to be fixed?
It's a question that really forces us to look closer at the infrastructure of human survival and our responsibility to maintain it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you, keep looking for the human story behind the statistics, and we will catch you next time.